All right, today we're diving into this really fascinating research paper that asks a tough but super important question. What's actually wrong with beauty school? And, more importantly, how do we fix it? We're going to unpack what they call a blueprint for a system that could finally work for students. So, yeah, let's just get right into it.
So our guide for all this is a paper from 2026, written by the research team at Tran University. And what it does, really, is it gives us this powerful new way to look at an industry that, well, for way too many people, it promises this amazing creative career, but what it delivers is a whole lot of debt and disappointment.
And that really brings us to the core question here, doesn't it? I mean, for so many people, beauty school is supposed to be this on-ramp, right? A path to a creative, independent career. But when you actually start looking at the results, at the outcomes, you've got to ask, is this whole thing a dream or is it a trap?
Okay, so to answer that, we've got to first really understand the crisis. We're going to take a look at why a system that seems so simple and straightforward from the outside is actually creating these nightmare scenarios for a ton of students.
So here's the model that's basically taken over beauty education. Step 1, charge really high tuition. Step 2, rely almost completely on federal student aid to cover it. And Step 3, do just enough, the absolute bare minimum, to meet the regulations. This has become the default way of doing things, even when all the data shows it's failing the very students it's supposed to be helping.
So the big question is, why? Why does this broken model just keep going? Well, the paper argues that to really get it, we need to pop the hood and look at some of these powerful, kind of hidden forces from economics and social theory. They're what's really driving all this.
Okay, first up is this idea called organizational legitimacy. And honestly, the idea is pretty simple. Organizations often survive just by looking the part. So a lot of beauty schools aren't successful because they're actually good. They're successful because, well, they've got classrooms, they process financial aid, they look like what we all think a school is supposed to look like. The paper calls this cognitive legitimacy, and it's a really, really shaky foundation to build trust on.
All right, next up, we have something called signaling theory. Think about it like this. A school's accreditation is supposed to be a signal, right? A stamp of approval that says, hey, this place is high quality. But for a signal like that to actually mean something, it has to be hard to get and, frankly, easy to lose. And what the research shows is that sometimes accreditation just hasn't been a reliable signal. It's allowed some pretty low-quality schools to keep their doors open and keep enrolling students.
And last but not least, there's this one, institutional isomorphism. Yeah, I know, it's a super fancy term for a really simple idea. When companies in the same field are kind of uncertain about the best way to do things, they just copy each other. It's just safer. And that is why so many beauty schools look, feel, and operate the exact same way. They're all just imitating the same, pretty flawed model.
So here's the punchline. When you mash all of these forces together, you get what the famous economist George Akerlof called a market for lemons. It's a perfect analogy. Imagine a used car lot where you, the buyer, have absolutely no way of telling the great cars from the total junkers. What happens? Well, eventually, the whole lot is just full of lemons, because why would anyone try to sell a great car there? You'd never get a fair price for it.
Let's just break down exactly how this happens in the beauty school world. First, you have students, and they're often from backgrounds where they don't have a lot of guidance, who just can't tell a great school from a really terrible one. Second, you've got federal aid, which completely hides the true price tag. So a bad school can cost exactly the same as a good one. And third, the accreditors, who are supposed to be our impartial mechanics, the ones checking under the hood. Well, sometimes they fail to call out the lemons. And the result of all that, you get a market that's just flooded with low-quality options.
But wait, what if a school decided to just do something completely different? This is where the story really takes a turn. The research starts to highlight these rare, fascinating cases of schools that intentionally decide to break away from this failing model.
The paper has a name for this too. Counter-isomorphism. It's basically when a school makes a strategic choice to not copy everyone else. It means you're giving up that easy, oh yeah, they look like a school kind of legitimacy in order to build something way, way stronger. Real, earned trust. It is definitely a costly move. It's the harder path, but man, is it a powerful one. And just look at the difference here. It's night and day. Your typical school, it's all about hitting the bare minimum, just enough to get by. But this counter-isomorphic school, it's aiming to blow past the minimum. It chooses radical transparency instead of secrecy. It might even decide to operate without federal aid, just to break free from that system.
We're not just talking about a different approach here. This is a fundamentally different philosophy about what a school should be.
Okay, so if a school actually wants to break the mold, how in the world do they do it? This brings us to what I think is the biggest idea in the whole paper, a brand new blueprint for building a trustworthy school from the ground up.
And they call it the legitimacy architecture. I love this metaphor. Think about it just like the blueprints for a house, right? It's not enough to just have a strong foundation or just a good roof. No, it's about 4 absolutely essential pillars that have to be designed from the start to work together. That's how you create a structure that's strong, stable, and, actually worthy of your trust.
So here they are, the 4 pillars that make up this whole architecture. First, you've got compliance posture. In simple terms, does the school just scrape by the rules, or does it actually try to go above and beyond? Second, information disclosure. Is it transparent and open, or is it secretive? Third is its technological infrastructure. What are the actual systems it's using to track all the important stuff, like your hours and your grades? And finally, and this is a big one, it's human-centered educational philosophy. Does it treat students like partners in their own education, or are they just transactions?
And this table just lays it out so perfectly. The most important point is that it's not enough to be good at just one of these things. The whole architecture has to be coherent. Everything has to work together. So a school that's really aiming for high trust, what they call the coherent high model, it has to do it all. It has to over-comply, be transparent, use ethical tech, and have that human-centered philosophy. Because if the pillars don't align, say a school claims to be transparent, but its compliance is super shady, well, the whole structure just falls apart. Trust is totally undermined.
So, okay, we've gone through a lot of theory here. Why does any of this actually matter in the real world? It matters because a broken system has real, tangible costs, and those costs don't fall on the schools, they fall squarely on the shoulders of the students. The paper frames this in a way that just hits you. This lack of transparency, what it calls institutional opacity, it isn't just a flaw in the system, it is a hidden tax that's paid again and again by the students who can least afford to pay it.
And we're not talking about abstract costs here. Let's get real. The decision cost tax? That's the time and money you literally waste picking the wrong school because you didn't have good information. The compliance navigation tax? That is the constant gnawing anxiety of not even knowing if your hours are being tracked right for you to get your license. The dispute resolution tax is that nightmare feeling when you have to fight the school over a mistake and they hold all the records, all the cards. And the transfer tax? That's the thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours you lose forever when you realize you have to leave and start over. These taxes are what cause students to drop out, to default on their loans, and to just give up on their dream entirely.
And this is why fixing this system is so unbelievably important. Beauty schools are this critical on-ramp to what's called the care economy. For so many people, especially women, immigrants, people from low-income backgrounds, this is one of the most direct paths to owning a business and having real economic independence. So a broken system here doesn't just hurt one person at a time, it actually weakens a really vital part of our entire economy.
So we kind of end up right back where we started, but now we have a totally new perspective. This research, it's given us the blueprint. It shows us exactly what a trustworthy, effective, and human-centered beauty school could look like. The only question left, and it's a huge one, is this: who's going to step up and actually build it?